Hello everybody, this is Nidhi from Canopas and you are listening to the Canopas Podcast, the show that wants to make developers' life a little bit easier by providing directive guidance. Welcome to episode 4. In this episode, we will discuss website performance and how it can be optimized. Today we have Jimmy as our guest who has experience in mobile applications and web development on multiple platforms. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Many times we find that websites are loading too slowly, even with high speed internet. We wait for some time until it loads, but as we are human beings, we do not have that much patience or even a time to wait for a long time to load our website. That's why we skip it and go to the next.
Yeah, that's true. Website loading time is one of the main pain point of the, I would say, internet, because user is actively waiting for something and it's not available. So it's like wasting their time, and most of the time user will wait maybe like a few seconds, one or two, and if it gets slower than that, then they will probably move on. I have read it somewhere that if website is loading for more than 3 seconds, then 33% of the users go away, and that's really bad for your product, website, company, or whatever that your website is trying to like get users on.
Yeah, that's very helpful. What is website loading time in the essence?
Mm, I would consider website loading time as like something that user clicks on and until it's ready to be like used for user. So suppose you click on a web page and it's loading and then rendering and it's like fully functional, that user can have interaction with it. That I would consider as website loading time.
That's very informative. Why does the website performance need to improve in the context of providing good user experience?
Because that's what a user expects from a website. Like if user clicks on something, they expect it to be available very soon. Otherwise it's like they are not utilizing their time, and they'll be like left frustrated with your website. So a good user experience is I would say the loading time, that is between 0 to 2 seconds. I would call it good user experience.
That's very informative. I have heard somewhere that it also affect SEO.
Yeah, it definitely affects SEO ranking. The reason is that the most of the search engine, including Google, prioritize content that has faster loading time, and that's because it's going to like improve, or it's going to provide better user experience to users. So like Google has three choices and it needs to make one of it, then it will probably pick the website that has very fast loading time.
Yeah, does Google consider any criteria for ranking our website?
Apart from the page speed, there are many factors that are like considered for ranking. One of them is, I would say, backlinks. The more backlinks from trusted source a website have, it's more likely to be like indexed up in the Google search. Another one I would say is domain rating. Websites from the good domain will be usually ranked up higher. Yeah, I think those are the main things apart from the on-page SEO, where you need to provide, like you need to set good metadata title and description to match your keywords, so that the content that is available to user is what they are looking for.
That's really helpful. I have read somewhere that Google arrange our website according its loading speed into three specific range like excellent, good, and poor. So our better choice should be optimizing our website speed, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
To improve our website loading speed, we need to first analyze it. And how can we do that?
Uh, there are many tools that are available, and most of them are free. The first one is Google Page Speed. It gives lots of insight into how your website is loading and various metrics like how much time it takes for first frame to be available and how much time it's taking for loading and what are the dependencies that you can get rid of. So yeah, Google Page Speed is completely free and it gives very useful tips for improving and measuring website loading performance. Another one is Pingdom. That is also a great tool. It tracks your website performance history and makes data driven recommendation on how to improve website speed and generate easy to understand reports. Pingdom also provides apps for website speed testing for Android and iOS. It has both free and professional paid monitoring plans. Another tool I can think of is Wiselo. Wiselo provides recommendations on how to improve performance of the page, draw statistics, and summarize all the components. The fourth one I can think of is Performance Budget Calculator. It is also a free tool that helps figure out what type of content you can use to keep your site running optimally. And I think there are many tools available. You can explore as needed. But yeah, these four are the one you can start with if you haven't been working on any website optimization.
So ultimately, they are suggesting us that where we are lagging and what we can improve, right?
Yeah, basically list out the inefficiencies in our website and some tips on how we can get rid of that or we can at least reduce it.
Great. So whenever tools provides us report like you are lagging at here, you need to optimize here. So what are the criterias we can consider to make our website loading speedily?
Uh, there are many, I would say, but let me recommend a few basic ones. The first one is images. Most of the time, images are responsible for bad website performance, and due to the fact that website images that we mostly include are of higher resolution, and that's due to the fact that images are mostly big in size, so it takes time for them to fetch from the server to client's machine and ultimately to the browser. And the more images that you have to fetch, the more time it will take for a website page to display to user. So I will start with images. So the solution is that see if you have any images on website, and if you have, then optimize it. There are a few tips that you can use. The first one is make sure you are not loading more pixels than required. What you can do is you can measure the component size of the image tag and check its size and make sure that your image size is not bigger than that, because it's ultimately a waste of resources. The image is going to be the same as there's no point putting up higher resolution image than required. Another thing you can do is you can compress the images. There are a few free tools available online and also a few libraries that can do that. Just Google search something like compress JPG or PNG or whatever format you have, and you'll have multiple options to do that. Another one is to use modern type images, that is to use WebP images or SVG images wherever possible. So we can take advantage of modern formats that are less in size compared to traditional formats. One more thing we can do is we can load images according to size of the device. Like if user is loading website on mobile, then there's no point using image that is like very huge in size and only useful for 4K or Full HD devices. So I would say optimize images for the resolution that you are targeting and use responsive images. One more thing we can do is the use of lazy loading. Lazy loading is, I would say, kind of a way where we first display the website to the user and then we start loading the images in background. So you cannot use this if the image that you are showing is on landing page and that user will immediately see when they visit your website. However, you can do this if it's in place further down in website and that is only shown to users if they scroll. So yeah, if component is not available on the, I would say, landing page, then use lazy loading.
That's really helpful tips. What if we have already compressed or reduced resolution of our image and still it takes very much time in loading in our website?
In that case, I would suggest lazy loading. Lazy loading is a process where you load the images after showing the page to user. So they are not like blockers for showing page. So once the web page is shown to user, lazy loading of the images starts. However, you cannot use it if the image that you want to optimize is on the landing page, because if it is, then user will expect it to see when website page load completes. So if it's further down in your scroll, you can use lazy loading.
That's very informative. Can you suggest any other tips?
Yeah, sure. Another one is observe and optimize your dependencies. Website can have many dependencies, and what I would call dependencies is a solution that you haven't designed yourself but is easily available as open source, and you have included it because it's giving you lots of benefits without much efforts. Like you use Bootstrap for responsive website and a few readily available classes and components. So I would consider it as a dependency. So if you have like a few dependencies, then it's fine, but if you have very long list of dependencies, then when your page loads, you'll also need to load all the dependencies to show the page to user. So yeah, make sure that the dependencies that you are using are light in weight, make sure they are not very big in size, and also try to reduce the dependencies as much as possible.
That's right. There are multiple libraries available online as well on open source platforms that are fulfilling our needs with similar functionality, but each of them have a different size. So choosing optimum library with minimum size will help to optimize our website performance.
Definitely. So it depends on the use case that you have. For example, if you need a particular functionality, make sure you search if that functionality is available as an independent package instead of selecting a package that has like very long list of features and you need only one of them. So whenever a library has more functionalities than you need and you are using only like 1 or 2% of that library, try to find alternative to see if it's available as an independent package.
Okay, sometimes we find that developers are writing extra styles in their code. Does it have any impact on website loading speed?
Definitely. If you have a new style, ultimately they are going to be fetched from the server to user's machine, and that will add data that the user will have to load your website. So definitely try to remove and clean up all the unnecessary styles or whatever code that you have. Those are the two main things I can think of. Anything you would like to add?
A minor thing I would like to suggest is use required styles only, because sometimes we add so many extra styles in our page while designing our website. So these ultimately sometimes affect our page rendering speed. So basically we should clean up our styles after completing designing.
Yeah, really good point about cleaning up. Most of the time we start with something and add so many styles, and we later forget to remove some of them, and eventually it can add to like a little bit of your bad website performance. So yeah, clean up after you are done with any component or a page. Another one I can think of is optimizing JavaScript and CSS dependencies. Basically, every JavaScript dependency or CSS dependency is available in many versions, and for the production you should only use minified versions. Basically, there will be like compressed version of the JavaScript or CSS dependency that you are using, which will not have any white space, and maybe it will have some other optimization that we don't know. So yeah, use minified versions wherever possible. Another one that I can think of is taking advantage of caching. Basically, browser provides various ways of caching, and as long as the content is cached on user's device, like in browser or somewhere else, it doesn't need to be fetched from the server. So it will basically improve website speed, as it will not have to load a few things. And you can like use different plugins for caching the content. Like in WordPress there is a plugin that you can use, and also like in other frameworks there are different ways of caching. Basically, you'll have to see what content can be cached and what cannot be cached. Like in case of Vue.js, everything can be cached except index.html, as that's the file that will basically stay the same, and everything else will have hash appended to it. So basically, if you make any change to any file, that file name will be changed, so you can cache it safely on browser website, and basically provide cache header with a year validity or so. Another thing, and that's very important, is using the compression method. Basically, when content goes from the server to user's device, it can be compressed, and that can save a very good amount of bandwidth, and basically that will improve the website performance. Gzip is very popular compression method that you can use. Every platform that you use will have a way to set that compression method, so yeah, don't forget it. So Nidhi, you also have a good experience on web, so can you think of anything else?
Another one I can think of is website hosting service that can badly impact your website loading speed. So moving to a better hosting service is the better solution for improving your website loading. For example, choosing a better hosting service can include shared hosting, which shares CPU, disk space, and RAM with other site as well. And there are major two types of hosting services. One is shared hosting that shares CPU, disk space, and RAM with other site as well. And another one is dedicated server, which, as its name suggests, it's dedicated only to you and will not share with anyone. But the drawback of a dedicated server is it is the most expensive one. So my suggestion is go serverless.
Yeah, serverless is a huge topic, and we also had a separate podcast on that. So if you don't have any idea what is serverless, I advise you to go and listen to that podcast or search for serverless terms on internet. Basically, in serverless you will not manage any server, and you will pay only for the resources that is used by you. Like if your site is not running or it does not have any active customers, then you don't pay for that time of that server. So yeah, go serverless all the way. Another one I can think of is using CDN, that is content delivery networks. So what is CDN? CDN is the provider that will serve the content from the nearby location of the user. Like if your user is located in India and your server is physically located in US, the content of your website need to be transferred from US to India, and that can take some time. So to improve on that, some CDN providers have so many like points where they can store the data. So when user requests for data, it will be provided from the point that is nearby to user's location. Like if user is using website from Mumbai that is a location in India. Basically, CDN provider will see if the content is cached anywhere in nearby location of user and will provide it from there if possible. And if not, then it will fetch the content from US and will cache it, and then it will provide it to the user. So basically, it will reduce the time that it can take for data to travel from a very far location.
That's a really good solution. Can you think of anything else to improve website performance?
I think we have covered most of the major points. Another one I can think of is asynchronous loading. That is, if some part of your website is not initially visible to user, then you don't need to load it. One more point I can think of is asynchronous loading of JavaScript and CSS files. Basically, if some part of your website is not initially visible to user, you don't need to load it. So you can try to load it when user navigates there. For example, in case of single page application, you can load all the routes of your website at the same time, or either you can also load the route when user clicks on it, or you can also load some part of your website when user scrolls down on your page and stuff like that. So yeah, basically see if something can be lazily loaded and do it. The last one I can think of is optimizing the database. So if you have dynamic sites, when user requests for a web page, basically what you'll do is you'll load data from the database, and then you'll create a web page, and then you'll provide it to user. So the time that it can take for data to be loaded from database to server can also impact performance of your website. So see if you can improve the query of that database, or see if you can improve the performance of your database by indexing some columns or stuff like that. Basically, first you need to profile where the most of time is being spent. Then you can figure out how I can reduce this part of the loading process.
Thanks for listening to the Canopas Podcast. Make sure to check the show notes to discover our informative materials related to this podcast. If you have any questions or are interested in further discussions, please feel free to reach out on our Twitter handle Canopas Software.